With the recent negative reviews from the newly released Borderlands, I feel like it set the subgenre back a few decades. Today, let's go ahead and talk about some good video game movies. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Figure Out Films. I'm your host, as always, Chris, and today I'm very excited because we're talking about a subgenre of movies that I'm low-key passionate about. I love video games. I think I watched movies and video games simultaneously sometimes when I was a kid, and I feel like that subgenre just is like up and down, and I feel like it's one of the easiest subgenres to kind of bully and talk crap on some of those movies. And I feel like now more than ever, with constant negative, poorly reviewed, poorly released video game movies, that it's kind of stirred studios away from producing movies from those IPs. But I'm here today to talk about a few of the really good ones. These are movies that have cult status. These are movies that were well adapted, and some of them even had quite a few sequels and franchises. And before we get started on the list, if you are new to this channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. We'd appreciate to have you here and all the support. The goal is still to get to 1,000. We're off to a slow start, but I'm really positive that we can go ahead and get to there. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now with this list, it's Friday. It's gonna be the weekend. I want you all to go out and enjoy some movies. So I figured I'm gonna make the list short and a little casual today. We're gonna go ahead and do 5 movies, 5 great video game movie adaptations. I am going to go ahead and start with an honorable mention before we get going. Now, I do not own this movie, but you can get it for dirt cheap. My only issue is I don't know if I want the 4K or the Blu-ray of it, but that is Warcraft from 2016. For those unfamiliar with Warcraft, Warcraft is an MMORPG. It's a mass media online role-playing adventure game that you played on your computer, and it was really popular in the 90s. This was before World of Warcraft, which ended up being the more mainstream, hugely popular video game franchise. We first start off with Warcraft, and this movie is a great adaptation of that. Now, I'm not going to go out and admit that I was the biggest Warcraft fan, but at the time, I did like World of Warcraft, and I did really like this movie. The movie knows what it is. It's blending some of those elements of fantasy from the online game and kind of putting it in just an adventure movie. And at the time, with like Game of Thrones being popular, those direct-to-DVD warrior movies like The Eagle and Centurion, I feel like this movie blended a lot of those things pretty well. And I think it should get a shout out and some love, more than it deserved at the box office. So I would check this movie out if you can. Coming at number 5 is another movie I do not own, but I do truly think this movie is great. That is 2021's Mortal Kombat. Now, the Mortal Kombat franchise, it's a fighting franchise. It's actually it was very popular because it was violent compared to the other action fighting games on the other consoles. So when the Sega Genesis came out, it tried to give the middle finger to its rival Nintendo by putting out a rated M blood, gore, punching fighting game, and from there it's history. Mortal Kombat is cemented as one of the best fighting franchises out there. It's still continuing on, always having out an awesome roster with a crazy story. It even spawned quite a few movies in the 90s that were actually cult status. Some movies, were pretty good. I've only seen the original Mortal Kombat, but I haven't seen any of the sequels. But I did see this movie when it first came out on HBO Max. It was during COVID, and I'm not gonna lie, I really liked this movie, and it had some great action, some good storyline elements to it. Even though the story of Mortal Kombat is a little out there, it was pretty grounded and very cool to see. I think the live action competition was really well done, and also I love the Scorpion vs. Sub-Zero storyline. It just was done perfectly in this movie. This movie, I think, only got like 55%, but I feel like more people talked about how good it was than how bad people didn't like it. So I would say that's a success, and it should be at number 5, Mortal Kombat. Coming at number 4 is a movie sequel, which you don't really see often, but it is a movie. It's a CGI movie that, to me, the graphics still hold up in 2024. This movie came out in like 2006. It is a sequel to the hit JRPG from the iconic franchise Final Fantasy. I'm talking about Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Now, this movie has a new 4K release, but honestly, you can't do too much with the graphics here because they still hold up, even on Blu-ray all these years later. I actually rewatched this movie recently, and I'm not gonna lie, I really loved it, but I also love this video game, and even the remake with Rebirth coming out. I feel like this game and this movie has gotten a resurgence. So we talk about CGI movies. Sometimes they're a little hit or miss because the graphics aren't that great, and you might as well think, why don't I just play the video game. Well, the nice thing with these kind of movies are either they like Dante's Inferno, the whole movie is constructed into a movie experience, but it shows aspects from the video game, just in a different animation style. You're not controlling the character, you're just watching it, and it's pretty enjoyable. And in some ways you get sequel movies like this, or prequel movies like Final Fantasy 15's Kingsglaive, which was also pretty good. But for me, it's Advent Children, because this is a direct sequel to that movie from 1997, I believe. I think the original came out in 2006, but then it got a Blu-ray remaster in 2016 and now has a 4K. Following the events after the first game, Cloud is trying to come to terms with the world almost ending and figuring out, should he stay in solitude or should he still defend the planet one last time? This movie, honestly, I can't recommend to people who are not fans of the original game or even know anything about the storyline of Final Fantasy VII. This is a true sequel for the true fans, and I know it's a little isolating in that way, but I love this movie, and it's one of the best video game movies I've ever seen. It's a great time. Coming in at number 3 is a movie I absolutely love and a franchise I defend dearly, and that is Paul W. Anderson's Resident Evil franchise, specifically Resident Evil 1. Now, this franchise gets talked bad and down to so often, but to be honest with you, I don't understand why. These are really cool movies. I think Paul W. Anderson takes the franchise in way different directions and to sometimes really big heights compared to some of the games. I'm looking at you, Resident Evil 6. Paul W. Anderson with the first movie was very grounded, very much a fuse of the original Resident Evil video game that came out on PlayStation from Capcom, and kind of spliced together Resident Evil Origin and Resident Evil 2, early parts of it. The first two movies specifically, Resident Evil Extinction, definitely are grounded in adapting those video games in their storylines. Just putting in Mila Jovovich, which isn't a bad thing. But I do really like this movie. This concept of Umbrella being this evil corporation that wants to release an infectious virus on people for bioweapons is a great storyline. And in this movie, the first one it's kind of sad to see these people get infected, and then you get some iconic parts from the video games in the movie adapted. That's really cool to see. The action is great. The CGI is a little dated, but man, these zombies look freaky and they're really creepy, and the action's still pretty good. I recommend, if you have not seen the original Resident Evil, definitely check this movie out. If you're a fan of the games, don't watch just the CGI movies, which are also really good. Give this franchise a chance, and whatever you do not watch the new Welcome to Raccoon City movie. Just stick with this and ignore that movie. Coming at number 2 is a Scream Factory release. I'm so happy that they put it out in an edition that it truly deserves. It's one of the most iconic and beloved franchises in video game horror, and that is Silent Hill. Silent Hill came out in 2006, starring Sean Bean. So the story of Silent Hill is basically people who've dealt with a lot of trauma go to this small little town, calls to them, or they travel to the city and they get stuck there because it's kind of stuck in its own time and space. A portal to hell in some aspects as well, where you have to relive all your trauma, and it's manifested in these creepy looking creatures that are trying to kill you. If you're not already intrigued, let me tell you some more. Sean Bean is in this movie. He's a father who's trying to find his daughter and his wife, who are actually stuck in the town of Silent Hill, and he's trying to get there. Now, when they're in Silent Hill, they find people living there, and they realize that there's a curse. Much like the Silent Hill video games, the story of Silent Hill and the video games franchise is different stories of different characters, and sometimes intertwining, especially between the father and son dynamic, or the father and daughter dynamic in 2 and 3. And in this movie, it tries to adapt to Silent Hill 2 and 3 and some aspects of Silent Hill 1 as well. But there's so many different stories, but still the lore of Silent Hill is always present, and it has that presence in this movie, where you get one scene with one of the demons called the Pyramid Head, which is totally cool and iconic, where it just literally rips somebody's skin off of them, and it's insane. It's when I was like, that's cinema, baby. But yeah, Silent Hill also has a very chilling ending, and it's very sad. And they actually did a sequel, which I've always wanted to see, but I've been told, if you love this movie, avoid that sequel. Maybe we'll cover it on the podcast. And finally, at number 1, I feel like it's at no surprise. This is by far the best movie adaptation of a video game, because it's kind of like a love letter to the games. I'm talking about the Pokemon, the first movie. Now, I would want to say Pokemon 2000, but Pokemon, the first movie, I would definitely say is a great video game movie. It's the first movie of its kind that's adapted from the games and the animated series. You get some really cool aspects. So you get this Pokemon that's been experimented on. You know about the lore of Mewtwo. However, in the video games, Mewtwo is just this known Pokemon. But in this movie, we actually get to see the origins of Mewtwo. We get to see ancient Mew. This is great stuff. For every kid born in the 90s and grew up in the 90s through Pokemon, the first movie was like an awakening. It ties so many things from the games, like the early Pokemon battles, the opening to this movie that you do in the game. Getting to see the character of Ash on the TV show, get to be in this big movie. It's just great. And this movie has all the feels. You get the double battles that you would get later on in the video game franchise. Pokemon is debatably as iconic as Disney and Mickey Mouse. But yeah, does this really count because it's not directly adapting the game? The whole point of the game is to become a Pokemon master, and this is just one aspect of Ash Ketchum's journey to be a Pokemon master. I'd say that counts. Also, it's the first movie. It's great. I don't know anyone who doesn't like Pokemon the first movie, unless you're not a fan of Pokemon. But even then, if you know who Pikachu is, and if you've seen some aspects of the animated show, or you played the game a little bit, I feel like you're gonna love this. If not, give Pokemon 2000 a shot, because that one's just as good. I need to revisit 3. Let me know down in the comments below. Should I also check out Pokemon 3? Is it just as good as these? What is your favorite Pokemon movie? Let me know down in the comments below. And there you have it. There are 5 awesome video game movies that I recommend you check out, especially with all the negative reviews coming out with Borderlands and other movie adaptations. Like I'm looking at Tomb Raider, I'm looking at Uncharted. I mean, there's so many more that I could throw out there. They're just so disappointing. Oh, Assassin's Creed, that is another one. Man, I thought I was gonna love that, but so don't let that discourage you. Go out and check out some of these video game movies. If you know some more that I didn't list down in the comments below, please drop that. I'd love to read those comments and engage with you all. Let's go ahead and let's keep going strong. I want to hit that 1,000 subscribers, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Enjoy your weekends, and remember, if you are not watching video game movies, do you really care about cinema? Other than that, I'll see you next time.